My talk this morning, I am going to be sharing ideas from your book of the month, A New Design for Living. And this book, Living as a River, which Reverend Darlene mentioned, that you also possibly have been reading. And then this is the first of 13 or more books by author Greg Bear, MD. It's called Real Love, The Truth About Finding Unconditional Love and Fulfilling Relationships. And although all the books start off Real Love and then they have subtitles, Real Love, yes, it's about love. But what it's really about is unconditional happiness. The principle is that each of us is only responsible for our own happiness, not everyone else's, just our own. And that our happiness is the greatest gift we can give the world. It's the greatest gift we can give our loved ones. And it is only for us to find what makes us happy. No one else can do it for us. So this is part of this theme and the talk title this morning of stepping into the stream. So the stream is really, to me, living in alignment with Spirit's nature, which is our nature. As human beings, we are spiritual beings. We are inseparably connected to the one source. And that source is a prospering, loving nature that is always looking for a betterment of life. It is always wanting to add unto. But we are beings of choice. And it leaves us free to choose and discover what makes us happy. What makes one person happy is very different than what makes another person happy. And that is God's perfect design of diversity within a container of wholeness and harmony and unity. Now, we don't always feel unified and harmonious when we're in the midst of change, particularly if we didn't initiate the change. If it wasn't our idea, it sometimes doesn't seem like a good idea to us at all. We might not even be able to see the good in it. And certainly in the world, when things happen that are hard to be with, that cause us pain, we have to really use our spiritual practices to know how to perceive something like that, to know how to reach for that greater good, that bigger plan, that the overarching spirit, the allness of spirit, which is infinite and eternal, has in mind for not only ourselves as individuals, but for ourselves as a community and what Ernest Holmes calls a race, a human race. So in this book by Deb Haass, he talks about that entering the stream means that we change the way that we see ourselves and others and the world. And that takes a willingness. It's a choice on our part. We don't have to. If we want to be happy, however, happiness does come easier when we are aligned with the nature of life, the nature of spirit. So it's something that we want to practice. And it seems hardest when what is not comfortable, when it's not what we want, or when we don't have enough information to understand the bigger picture of good that's unfolding. So Deb Haass also talks about this Buddhist practice of embracing impermanence, which is just really another name for change. It means that things are constantly changing. That is the nature of life. And in Science of Mind, we understand that this is the law at work. This is how the Creator has created life for us, and that we are inseparable from that perfect operation, that perfect design. This is how we can better our lives, is by intentionally using this creative law. So the realm that we work in science of mind, or as religious scientists, is in the invisible realm of thought and belief. It is an invisible realm. It's not the tangible realm. Sometimes we try to control the tangible realm to try to get what we want, but really everything starts with our thinking. And what I want to really talk about today is our perceiving. So what we make things mean. We make decisions about things. And it's based on those decisions is then how we feel. So our feelings become the feedback loop to, and it is a perfect design of God that we get a feedback loop that lets us know what we're thinking is not something that's going to make us happy. We could say it that way. We could also say that if we're not feeling good, if we're not feeling peaceful, if we're not feeling happy, that then that also becomes a red flag that what we're thinking is not in alignment with the nature of life, with really the way, with the potential of what's available from life. So I'd like to ask you now, we use a lot of stories in Real Love teaching. It's got very simple practices and they are very much aligned with science of mind. But I'd like to tell you a story and actually have you live into it. So if you will join me now by closing your eyes, and we're going to imagine an experience. So imagine, if you will, that you are sitting outside on a beautiful day and you're with some friends. You're sitting around a table, very comfortable in your chair, and there is wonderful food being laid before you on the table. It is your favorite food. And there is beverage there, just what you like to enjoy. And this table and this setup is near a body of water. Let's call it a lake, a beautiful, deep lake. And you're sitting on this deck near this lake, and there are other tables and chairs between you and the lake, and you are having wonderful conversation with your friends. And everything about this day, from the birds singing to the temperature to the soft breeze that is kissing your face, you are just relaxed and open and just thinking life is great. And so it is. And you begin to feel a spray of water coming from the direction of the lake. And it feels curiously refreshing. So you don't even interrupt your conversation, you just continue talking with your friends. Now, another spray of water comes, this time a little heavier. And then more splashing water comes, and it's starting to land on the table and get your food wet. It's plopping into your beverage, and your clothes are starting to get wet, and you're not dressed to go swimming. And your friends, and you're looking at your friends, and they're looking at you, and you're both thinking, well, this is really inconvenient and I'm not enjoying this anymore. And you go from curiosity to annoyed, and then at some point when your clothes are good and wet, you decide that you will be an ambassador for your group, and you will get up and walk around the tables and go to the lake and give this person in the lake a piece of your mind because they are being very inconsiderate. And so you do get up and you walk toward the lake. And as the lake comes into view, you see a person in the lake, a distance off from the shore, in a deep part of the lake, and you realize that they are drowning. Their head is bobbing up and down out of the water. Their arms are flailing. You can see the expression on their face. Their eyes are sort of bugged out. They are in terror and they need help. Now stop for a moment and ask yourself, what do I instantly feel as I take in this sight? You were annoyed, angry, you were going to give them a piece of your mind, you were going to tell them they needed to stop. Now you have more information. And so now, if you will, you can open your eyes. So let's explore this change in perception. So we went from curiosity to slightly annoyed to angry to wanting to, tell them so-and-so and have them stop. And then you realize they're drowning and they need help. How many of you instantly wanted to throw them a life preserver? It's like, where does the anger go? It immediately goes as you got the truth about the situation. So in Real Love, we have a principle, a foundational principle, that says that at all times, everyone is always doing the best they can. That if somebody is unloving or irresponsible or inconsiderate, that it tells us something about them. It's not about us. Even if it's, a one-on-one relationship and they're screaming at you, they are drowning in life. And drowning is fearful. It feels helpless. It feels hopeless. The main thing is fear. When we're afraid, we don't behave as lovingly as we do when we are more confident, less afraid, more connected feeling. So this principle that everyone is always doing the best they can becomes a guide for relationships. It allows us to understand other people's behavior. But guess what? It also helps us to understand ourselves. It helps us to be truthful with ourselves and responsible for how loving can I be in this moment. There's a thing called HALT. You may have heard of it. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And I like to add an S on the end. I know it doesn't make any sense, but sick. Because if I'm sick, I'm pulled in wanting to spend my energy internally. And appropriately so, I should do that. And it isn't wise for me to be out and about and trying to serve other people. I'm not going to be as good at it. And if someone does something that's inconsiderate and I'm sick, I'm going to tend to feel like a victim. I'm going to tend to judge them. I'm going to tend to get angry. None of that adds to my happiness. And this is what Real Love is all about. It's really about me noticing how I feel, taking responsibility for how I feel, knowing that it's a function of my thought, belief, perception, and reevaluating what I'm thinking. That takes courage. And there's a spiritual practice that I call curiosity. And I've always been a really curious girl. I mean, I never grew out of that stage where you ask a million questions, except I don't ask my parents anymore. I just ask myself internally, and I'm always wondering, and I do drive my husband a little crazy sometimes with my curious questions, but he's a scientist, so he kind of likes it too. But it's like we want to encourage ourselves, our natural curiosity, our wondering of if someone is rude to us, we can use that curiosity to say, gosh, I wonder what they must be going through. You know? Because this principle of everyone is always doing the best they can, the extension of that is that we realize that no one wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'm going to be extremely inconsiderate today to everyone I meet. I'm going to be unloving on purpose. Nobody does that. And how we can know it for other people is because we can know it for ourselves. Wouldn't you say that's true of yourself? You never wake up in the morning and say, I'm really going to be a bitch today. I'm going to be mean and cruel. No, that behavior is a consequence of pain. It's a consequence of soul pain. It's a consequence of not feeling loved, not feeling connected, being scared of just about anything, being scared we don't belong. So in Real Love, we use this chart to teach and understand this principle. And in the workshop this afternoon, we're going to learn a lot more about the kinds of behaviors that we engage in when we are afraid and when we can't be loving. We do other things to try to control, and that never feels loving or responsible. But it starts with an event. So the event was we were getting splashed. We were enjoying our day, and then we got splashed, and we got all wet, and our food was all wet. We made a judgment. This is where thought is. So we made a judgment. We decided what was true about the situation. There's a person over there that is extremely rude, inconsiderate. They are not paying attention to my needs, and they need to. And that created a feeling. This is our feeling. Nobody creates our feelings. Our feelings are a consequence of our perceptions. Period, end of story. There is no of what we were raised with, you make me so mad. It's not true. It's a false idea, as Ernest would say. So our feelings are our feedback loop that Spirit gives us so that we can constantly be checking to see, are we being responsible for our happiness? And then what the feeling does is it creates an outward reaction. We want to say something, we want to do something, we want to make a choice. But it ends up being a reaction when we're judging. And when we judge, we separate ourselves from other people. We separate ourselves from the good of God. We start to believe there are two powers instead of one. Good and evil. There's wrongdoing and right doing. When really, there are just choices, and some are loving and some are not. Some feel good and some don't. Some cause pain and some don't. But the reaction then creates another event, a conversation, a fight, some kind of interaction, some kind of experience, and then we go round and round. So we do this with a lot of things. I have a talk on worry, and we call this the worry-go-round because it's what we do. We have a thought. There's some kind of situation. My youngest son, is going all the way to Florida to go to school all by himself. I start to think, bad things could happen. Then I don't feel good. I feel fearful. And then the fear makes me worry more. So sometimes the reaction is in the invisible realm of thought. We think more thoughts. And that's how we get stuck on, in Real Love, we call this the victim cycle, the cycle of victimhood. And we can get off that. And how we get off that is that we pay attention to how we feel. We start to care more than we ever did before about how happy we feel. As many moments in the day that we can focus on. And when we notice we're not happy, if we're anything less than peaceful, we've got some fear going on. So we go back and we say, what did I make that mean? What's going on in my life? What am I making it mean? And we reevaluate. Here is where we do the spiritual work. This is the invisible realm of thought, belief, perception. And this is where we do, as science of mind followers, as religious scientists, as new thought faith people, we do our work here. And it affects the whole. So this can be a virtuous cycle. Life is a stream. It's never ending. It's, and we're already in the stream. The stream is life. The stream is actually the good life. But we could be swimming upstream, paddling upstream, working against life if we're in fear. But when we consciously step into the stream is when we do this. We go back and we say, what does faith tell me? Faith tells me that God is love and that God is the creator of all things. It creates out of itself, so it embodies everything it creates. So God's love is everywhere as a pure potential. Just because I can't see it or feel it doesn't mean it's not there. And if it's not there, I'm not seeing it or feeling it, then it's calling me to be the channel through which for it to express. Am I willing to answer that call? Am I willing to be the ambassador of love instead of the ambassador of judgment and fear and separation? So when we go back and we do that, then we feel loving. We feel connected. We feel the goodness of life. We feel the goodness of the stream. We're in the stream, but we can be completely ignorant to all the good, all the abundance that is available for us. But once we do that work and we let go of the idea that there is a good and a bad, that there is an evil, that there is an against, that there is any kind of energy that is ever against us. I love Ernest Holmes in one of his Sermon by the Sea, it was called. It was at Asilomar, and it was when he was much older. It was one of his last talks. And he talked about the future of human consciousness and how wonderful it would be to be in community with people who were for something and against nothing. So you think about that for a moment. It sounds wonderful, but think about it in practice. You're for peace and not against war. You're for love and not against hate. It takes continuing to stay in the faith of the principles of that all goodness. That everyone is really doing the best they can. If their best isn't very good, they're in a lot of pain. And they need support. They need love. They need understanding. And so it doesn't justify people who do painful things. But it helps us to understand that those people are in pain, that it is a cry for help, and that the best thing we can do is to pray for them, is to know that there is that spark of God within them that is capable of learning and growing and changing, making new choices. So in life coaches practice, we have a perspective that we hold for our clients, which says that everyone is creative, resourceful, and whole. No matter what they're doing, that is their essence. It is a spiritual perspective, but it's not labeled as a spiritual perspective. But it is the same way we look as practitioners upon our clients and our students, is that there is as much God in me as there is in every other person. And so that pure potential for unconditional happiness is absolutely available for each person, but they have to choose it. So in Bodhipaksa has this wonderful, let's see if I can find it, this wonderful saying, all beings are from the very beginning Buddhas. When you or I relate to another as a changing, evolving being who has the capacity for wisdom and compassion, we are more likely to act toward them in a way that helps them to grow into their potential. And it helps us to grow into our own potential as well. So Ernest Holmes, in A New Design for Living, he points out that there is always something in us that knows that we need not sink. We need not sink, that we are capable of choosing faith over fear. We are capable of going back and examining what we are believing and thinking. And Ernest Holmes, I think it's on page 61 of his book, he says, we do think. Our thought is creative. And as a result, our life is what we make it. It is a case of sink or swim, where previously we may have frantically splashed around, getting nowhere, barely keeping our heads above water. We now know that swim we can, swim we will. So we can allow that good nature of the stream of life to provide ease, to take us where we'd like to go in life. It's a process of making our lives better by continuing to make confident and deliberate choices in how we perceive what is. Let's take that into prayer. I invite you to close your eyes, relax into God in the chair that is holding your body, God in the floor that is gently beneath your feet, God in the invisible air that is breathing your body, and God in everything in this room and beyond that is vibrating with that presence of unconditional love and abundant, ever-giving forth. And so in this moment, I recognize that the nature of life is a flow of good. It is a constant stream of benevolent, prospering evolvement. That this life is meant to create and evolve and get better and better and better. And that nature of life is, it indwells me. It's not outside of me. That is what is breathing my body at this moment. And as I open my consciousness and align my consciousness with that powerful, wonderful nature, I am uplifted. I am aware of my wholeness. I am aware of the constant creative potential of my life, the freedom that I have to go be, do, and have. And I know I have this wonderful guidance system that is with me. It is part of that indwelling nature, that I am always able to check myself and adjust my course. So I get to choose the course as I travel downstream. I never need to fight against the current. And I allow myself to be supported and sustained, prospered by life. So no longer do I need to feel alone and to feel that I have to make things happen. For life wants to give and provide for me. And as I put my faith in that, as I focus my thinking on that, it comes rushing in. Because a little bit of willingness on my part goes a long way with my Creator. For it loves me so much because I am it. I am a unique, individualized expression of this one infinite, eternal, and benevolent source. It rejoices every day to see what I will do, what I will choose. And even if I make what I think is a mistake, a choice that doesn't serve, I am still learning and it is still rejoicing because it knows that in truth, it is eternal and infinite. It is the one and only power. It can never be harmed. There is that in me that can never be harmed. That is that indomitable spirit that is mine. It is my divinity. And I open to that each and every day. And as I open to it, as I turn toward it and acknowledge it, it is empowered to express through my thinking, my feeling, my doing. And it is that source of love, that energy of love that then guides me through my day. And I am attracted to its likeness. So everywhere I go, I meet love. I feel love. And where there is seemingly a lack, I know it is a call to let it flow through me. I let it guide me in my thought, in my word, in my perception. And I am lifted into a happiness that I have never known. So I know that this is possible for each one of us here. It is merely a choice away each and every moment. There is no arduousness in this work. There is just the joy of stepping into our own freedom. Freedom to be supported, freedom to be prospered. And so I rejoice in this truth that I speak. I know as I speak it, the law works upon it in a powerful and miraculous way. I expect miracles to unfold and all manner of happy experiences to come my way and in the way of each one here in this room today. And I know that as you go out as ambassadors of love and happiness, that there is a ripple effect that just touches so many lives we have no idea. And so all there is to do is to release this into the activity and the alchemy of love and law, knowing that it is done, that even greater than what I could imagine as an individual is available and downloading, unfolding in our lives. And so I just accept all of this good for each person here and for each person that is in that person's life, honoring that ripple effect of spirit. And so if you embrace all that I have spoken, please join me in acknowledging that by saying, and so it is.